Some people notice something strange about the way their mind works. In conversations, they often pause a little longer before answering, not because they don't understand the question, but because too many thoughts arrive at once. And sometimes they wonder quietly to themselves, why does my brain keep going when everyone else seems satisfied with the first answer? For years, behaviors like this have been interpreted in simple ways. People might say someone is overthinking, too analytical, maybe even socially distant, and over time, those labels begin to stick. But people who experience this pattern usually sense something else is happening beneath the surface, because it isn't just about thinking more, it's about the way certain minds process the world differently. Psychologists and neuroscientists have spent decades studying individuals with unusually high cognitive ability, and what they've discovered is that high intelligence doesn't just change how much someone knows. It subtly changes how their brain filters, analyzes, and responds to everyday experiences. One of the most consistent findings involves something called cognitive processing depth. People with higher IQ scores tend to automatically analyze information through multiple layers. Where one person may see a single explanation, another mind instantly explores several possibilities, not consciously, but reflexively. This is partly connected to activity in the brain's prefrontal cortex. This region helps manage complex reasoning, pattern recognition, and abstract thinking. In individuals with higher cognitive capacity, neural networks in this region often communicate more efficiently, which means their brain keeps searching for connections even after others have mentally moved on. That's why certain small moments can feel unexpectedly intense. Someone might make a casual comment, and the mind quietly begins unpacking what it could mean. The tone, the context, the unspoken subtext. And sometimes the analysis continues long after the conversation has ended. A person might replay the interaction later that night, not out of insecurity but curiosity. Their brain simply doesn't like leaving patterns unfinished. You might notice this in small behaviors. For example, some people pause before sending a simple text message. They reread it once, then again, adjusting tiny details that most people wouldn't even notice. Or they write a message, delete it, rewrite it, trying to capture the exact meaning they intended. Not because the message is important, but because their mind naturally searches for precision. Another quiet pattern appears in conversations. Someone asks a simple question, and the person hesitates. Not because they're confused, but because their mind instantly generates several possible answers, and they're deciding which one truly fits. This can sometimes make highly intelligent individuals appear slower in casual dialogue, when in reality, their brain is briefly exploring a wider map of possibilities. And interestingly, neuroscience suggests this mental layering also affects emotional experiences. Some high IQ individuals show increased activity in areas of the brain linked to sensitivity and awareness. Regions like the anterior cingulate cortex and the insula often play roles in monitoring subtle changes in the environment, which means certain people don't just analyze information deeply, they also perceive emotional nuance more strongly. A shift in someone's tone, a pause that lasts half a second longer than usual, a facial expression that most people would overlook. All of it becomes data, and the brain begins trying to interpret it. If you've ever noticed yourself doing this, you're definitely not alone. And if you enjoy exploring these quiet patterns of human psychology, subscribing to the channel helps more people discover these insights. One surprising result of this heightened awareness is something psychologists call cognitive overstimulation. When the brain continuously processes information at multiple levels, everyday environments can become mentally exhausting. Crowded places, constant background noise, too many conversations happening at once. For some people, the brain simply struggles to filter it all out. So instead of ignoring extra input, it processes everything, which can make silence feel unusually comforting. You might notice this in small habits. Some people with very active analytical minds prefer spending long periods alone, not because they dislike others, but because solitude reduces the number of signals their brain has to process. Without realizing it, they are giving their nervous system a moment to rest. Another mirror moment appears in decision-making. A person might spend a surprising amount of time choosing between two simple options, not because the decision is difficult, but because their mind automatically explores the long chain of possible consequences. Option A leads to one series of outcomes, option B leads to another, and the brain briefly runs both simulations. From the outside, this can look like hesitation. Internally, it's complex mental modeling. Interestingly, research also shows that people with higher intelligence often report feeling socially misunderstood at certain points in life, not because they are incapable of connection, but because their thought patterns sometimes move at a different rhythm than the people around them. Conversations may feel too shallow, or discussions may end just as their curiosity is beginning. Over time, this can create a quiet sense of separation, not loneliness exactly, more like existing slightly outside the emotional tempo of the room. There's also a paradox hidden inside this cognitive style. High intelligence can make someone exceptionally good at recognizing patterns in the world, but it can also make them more aware of complexity. And complexity rarely produces simple answers. So while others may feel comfortable with clear conclusions, the analytical mind often keeps questioning. This questioning can be a powerful strength. It fuels creativity, innovation, and deep understanding. Many scientific discoveries and philosophical insights were driven by minds that refused to stop exploring possibilities. But the same mechanism can also carry a quiet cost, because when the brain constantly sees multiple interpretations of reality, certainty becomes harder to hold on to. Even personal decisions can feel layered with endless nuance. And yet, none of this means something is wrong with the mind experiencing it. In fact, from a neurological perspective, the brain is simply doing what it was designed to do. It is detecting patterns, exploring variables, searching for deeper meaning. The behavior that sometimes gets labeled as overthinking is often just the natural side effect of a brain wired for complexity, a system built to analyze more information than average. The final insight is something researchers rarely mention in simple discussions of intelligence. High cognitive ability doesn't just change how someone thinks, it can quietly shape how they experience being human. Moments may feel more layered, questions may run deeper, and the search for understanding may never fully stop. But that curiosity is not a flaw. It's simply the mind continuing its quiet work, trying to understand the world and itself a little more clearly. And if some of these patterns felt familiar to you, there's a good chance your brain has simply learned to explore reality through deeper layers than most. There are many quiet patterns like this hidden inside human behavior, and sometimes noticing them is the first step toward understanding ourselves in ways we never quite considered before.